can really taste the pesto in there. It's got lots of flavour.
So for our Tuscan estate calzone filling, we first want to start off, I like to use like a nice big pot. And we're going to get this going over like a medium heat with some extra virgin olive oil. And I'm using some of the local olive oil here from Naxos, Greece, from the Happy Olive Farm. Not sponsored, but I love their olive oil. It's so delicious. And we're going to get going in some garlic. And we just want to saute that until we can start smelling it. We don't want to burn it. All right, so I can start to smell it now. We're going to get going in our summer squash, or if you are cooking this out of the season, you can use like an autumn squash or whatever type of pumpkin you would like. And I have some portobello mushrooms. There's no onion in this pie as well, so if you're somebody who doesn't like onion, this might be a nice alternative for you. Now we just want to saute this until our mushrooms are cooked down and we start to get a little bit of colour on that pumpkin or the squash. So I've been sauteing my pumpkin and the mushroom in the garlic for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to start adding all the remaining ingredients except for our kale. So I've got here just a can of diced tomatoes. We have some cooked cannellini beans, and I just use the ones from a can, but you can cook your own if you like. I have your favourite plant milk, unsweetened. And a lot of the flavour from this recipe is actually coming from the pesto. So we're using a vegan pesto. You can make your own. I will include a recipe that you're welcome to use, but I just purchased, this is a product from the supermarket, and you can find so many different vegan pestos now available in most supermarkets. So if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can just use a store-bought one, but if you would like to make your own, you can go ahead and do that too. So we're going to add our pesto in. And I've just reduced the heat down as well. Now you can add a little bit of salt and pepper to season. I'm just going to add a small amount now, and then at the end we can have a check. And now I'm just going to cover this, and we're going to cook this on a very low and slow heat for 30 minutes. Okay, so we've had our filling cooking for about 25 minutes, and I already had a check and I'm happy with it already. So at this stage, we're going to be adding our kale. In my case, I can't get kale here in Naxos, Greece, so I'm just using some local spinach. But if you can get the kale, use that. And we're just going to mix that through until it starts wilting. And that pumpkin or squash and the beans are going to give it a nice thick texture as well, which is perfect for our pies. Now at this stage you want to give it a taste and just adjust your seasoning as needed. Try and get a little bit of everything. That's actually perfect. We get the sweetness from the pumpkin and the meatiness from the mushrooms and all the herbs and the flavour from the pesto. So I'm going to set this aside now. Just so this cools down a lot faster, I'm going to transfer it into a shallow dish. And just cover to contact with some cling wrap and set that aside until it completely cools down. You can make this filling a day ahead of time as well and just leave it in the fridge. So today we're making an olive oil pastry crust, and it's super easy to make, all made from simple, nutritious ingredients. So to get started, we are going to be creating our plant-based egg replacer. And today all I've done is taken some ground flaxseed. Now if you can't find ground flaxseed, you can just buy the whole ones and put them through a spice grinder or your blender. And I've just mixed that with some water and set that aside for about 15 minutes until it's become quite thick and gelatinous. So that's going to be our egg replacer. So you want to prepare that ahead of time. Now I'm using a couple of different flours today. It is optional, but if you want to make this a little bit healthier, you can use your favorite ancient grain. So today I am using some spelt flour, and what's special about spelt flour is it is an ancient grain, a whole grain, and it's much easier to digest. And it has a very lovely nutty flavor. So I really love it in this pastry. And I'm using a 1-to-1 ratio in the flour. So half of my flour is whole wheat flour, or in my case, the spelt. And then the other half, I'm using just an all-purpose flour. Okay, so we're going to get our flour going into our stand mixer, or you could also use a food processor, or do all of these steps by hand. So that's our all-purpose flour, our spelt flour. If you don't have spelt, you can just use whole wheat or just the all-purpose flour. Okay, and then of course our extra virgin olive oil. So we're not using any margarines or other types of fats in this recipe. We're just using our extra virgin olive oil. So nice and healthy. And some sea salt. So I'm just going to get this onto my mixer with the paddle attachment, or if you're just using it in your stand mixer, you can just mix everything up, just blend it all up. And we just want to evenly distribute all of that olive oil throughout the flour, as well as the salt as well. And it will start to look kind of like breadcrumbs. This dough also makes great savory crackers, or you can use it for your favorite pie crusts or savory pastries. All right, that looks mixed up nicely. So we're gonna add in our vegan egg replacement, which was our ground up flax seeds with the water, and that's going straight in. So we've just added our egg replacer, been mixing it for about a minute or so, and things are starting to come together, but I'm going to add a little bit of cold water just to bring everything together, so we get a nice cohesive soft dough. So I like to just start off with just a really small amount, maybe like a tablespoon or two, and we'll get the mixer on and see how we go. Every type of flour is going to absorb water differently, so it's important just to add as you go to get the right consistency. We want everything to start kind of coming together into a ball. You can see it's starting to really clump together and come into one big mass. That's what we're looking for. All right, that's looking good. Let's switch this off. So as you can see in our mixer, everything's kind of starting to come together, which is perfect. And look, if you don't like a whole wheat dough like this, you can just use 100% all-purpose flour. Yes, so we've got a nice, lovely, soft dough. We're going to bring everything together. And we're just going to cover it in some cling wrap. So I've just covered my pastry in some cling wrap, and we're going to transfer that into the refrigerator for at least an hour to completely rest. So we have our olive oil pastry. It's been resting in the fridge for a couple of hours, so it is ready to go ahead and use. Now I'm going to portion these out now for our Tuscan steak calzone. We need 90 grams per pastry, and this is for an individual portion or as like a full individual portion. Obviously, if you want to do mini versions, you can just make them smaller. So I'm going to just portion these out now. Now we just want to squish each portion together and just roll into a ball. You can put a bit of cling wrap over the top just so they don't dry out. Now we're going to take each portion of our dough onto our bench. Now you can put a light amount of flour, or you can even use like a tiny bit of olive oil so it doesn't stick. And we're going to roll this out to about a 2 millimeter thickness. You can use some rolling guides if you want, or just to check at the end. And to get a nice circle, you just want to go from the inside to the outside with your rolling pin. And go in and check with your rolling guides. Then of course we need to put our filling. And I find for this size, I need half a cup. So I've just got my half cup measurement. Now I like to spread it out a little bit. And then we're going to fold over. And just use your finger to press that down, join it together. And we want to have like a finger width of pastry from where the filling is. Okay? So once you've achieved that, we're going to trim this. So see where your finger is, you want to trim sort of that edge. And I like using a pizza cutter or a pastry wheel to do that. Just makes things easier. And then you get a nice clean edge. Okay, we can keep those scraps. Now with our pastry, if you want to do a crimped edge, I'm going to show you how to do that now. You can go in there just with a fork and do it and then cut it. But if you want to have a beautiful crimped edge, the way that we do that was using our thumb and our forefinger, and we're going to use those two fingers to pinch our pastry and then use our thumb to fold it over. So pinch and fold over. And you just want to continue doing that all the way along your pastry, and then you get a beautiful crimped design. And then you have your beautiful estate calzone. Now I made one previously that I've already popped onto a tray, and I've just lined my tray with some baking paper or a silicone mat. And then if you do have it, you can pop an air mat on top of that to get some good circulation in the oven, so you get a lovely crisp pastry. And we can continue putting all our pastries on here. Okay, I'm going to carry on with the next one. Now all our pastries are done, we can start putting our vegan egg wash, and it's super easy to make. All I'm using is some plant milk. So we're going to do 10 parts plant milk. I just do all of this by eye. To 1 part simple syrup, or I'm using like a maple syrup. We can use agave syrup. So it's a really small amount. And you just want to brush that all over your pastry. And I also like to put over some sesame seeds, which is optional. And it's also important to put a few holes in there while baking so some steam can come out. So I've just got a little skewer here, or you can use a fork. I'm just going to put a few holes in there in each one. Now, if you didn't want to bake these right away, you could actually freeze them until they're completely solid and then store them in Ziploc bags and bake them straight from frozen. This is how we would do it in a bakery. But I'm going to cook these now. I've got my oven preheated to 180 degrees Celsius with a fan. And we're going to cook them from anywhere between 25 and 40 minutes. We really want to just keep an eye, and it's also going to be dependent on the size of pastry that you make and whether you take it straight out from frozen. So a good guide is we're going to put them in now and then check them after about 20-25 minutes and see how they're going. Okay, so it's been 25 minutes. Let's take a look. So we're getting some lovely golden color. Now I think I'm going to pop these back in for another 10 minutes, and I'm just going to reduce the temperature down a little bit for my oven, so probably like 170, and cook these for another 10 to 15 minutes. So we have our Tuscan estate calzones, and I had prepared some ahead of time, and I've just heated up a few to serve now. So let's get these onto a plate. You can really taste the pesto in there. It's got lots of flavor, and that pastry is so delicious.
just on its own. Look at all these gorgeous vegetables in there. A super healthy pie, but super tasty. It's packed full of flavor from that pesto, and then you get a subtle sweetness from the summer squash and the portobello mushrooms, and of course, some protein from the cannellini beans. I hope you enjoy this recipe, guys, and I will see you in the next video.